And welcome back to another episode of the Real Conversations podcast. This is episode 124 with country music artist Logan Mize. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
This is really fun. This was the last episode you and I did together was 70 weeks ago.
70 weeks.
70 weeks.
Wow, time flies.
It does.
That feels like maybe a month ago.
I know. It's crazy because we did one, I think it was like episode 46 or so. And then 50, we did one like two within like a 4-month period or something really tight.
Mm-hmm.
And then to go 70 weeks over a year without doing an episode, I think we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, dude. I didn't realize it'd been over a year.
Yeah. And it's
Welcome
cool.
back.
It's cool too because you just wrapped up the American Dream Tour and I just got the restaurant open last week. And I feel like this is like a very pivotal time in both of our lives.
Yeah, dude.
How have you been?
Wonderful. And you've been crushing it. Came to your restaurant last week. Couldn't get in because there's a line out the door and there was a wait, and I had 2 little kids with me that were like starving, and so we had to walk next door. So that's how good you're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It was trial by fire. We had no clue what was going to happen when we opened the restaurant. We found out last weekend we got a lot of bugs to work out, but it sounds like from the outside looking in that things appeared to be moving really well, which is a good thing for us.
Yeah, no one ever knows that stuff, and this is different but the same. During a show, if like you have technical hiccups, we just played our last show at Riverfront Stadium here in Wichita, and we had multiple like technical issues that I was kind of had to ad-lib my way through. And so the first thing you get off stage, you're like, oh, sorry for that and sorry for this. People don't have any idea.
They're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, no idea. They're just happy to have fun.
What kind of happened at that performance?
We just had some errors with stuff rides around in the trailer. It gets dusty. Input jacks get messed up and broken in load-ins and load-outs. You got forklifts taking stuff, and every now and then stuff just goes out, whether it's, your hi-hat mic or whatever it is. Or we have a lot of wireless equipment, and that stuff gets interfered with a lot. Sometimes you just gotta kind of raw dog your way through it,
That is a massive fear that I have. So we were talking about the first 2 episodes and how they're different than this one. The equipment setup is so much different in this one, but my biggest fear is like what happens if that goes out or if I lose a mic or if the production board breaks or the camera. And I know how expensive it was to get everything the first time around. Like, do you have backups now or like, is it still you're running with one set?
No, because sometimes the best thing that can happen is that everything goes wrong and you have to figure out how to dig yourself out of a ditch. And once you do that, you kind of go, okay, if everything fails, I know that I still have a guitar and there's people here. I don't even care if the PA is on. You can still say, gather closely,
Yeah.
I mean, worst case scenario, you can still play your songs in some form or fashion. So, but you're always I can't name a stretch that we've gone more than 4 or 5 shows in a row without something happening.
I can't even imagine. I saw on your Instagram that you had to overnight a piece of equipment because you forgot something for one of your performances.
That's not the first time. Yeah, well, we're always shuffling stuff. We have the acoustic trailer and then we have the full band trailer because we hop back and forth between acoustic tours, full band tours. And I constantly leave things in the wrong trailer. And then stuff comes into the studio here. Sorry, you can hear semis going by here to the co-op. And then I forget to get it out of the studio, put it back in. So it's nonstop and it wears everybody out.
Yeah.
So I apologize to my crew.
No. Yeah. So you made the comment about the semi, and then last time you were making comments about the air compressor. I actually feel very confident. So I've got some post-production software I use that absolutely normalizes and eliminates anything other than speech.
Cool.
So I think we're good to go, man. I'm ready for whatever gets thrown at us this episode.
Perfect.
So I have a question that I'd like to open with here. There's a Morgan Wallen line to something along the lines of, I'm living the dream. I feel like a rock star in and out of cop cars. And then it continues on and it goes to the point of, I signed up to be the life of the party. Yeah, to everyone but me. And you made a comment last time about kind of what appears on the outside of it's an awesome career and it's a lot of fun, but a lot of people don't realize how much work goes in on the back end. And so where I wanted to start this episode is to ask you, for you, what has been the price of your ambition?
The price. Well, less time with your family, obviously.
Yeah.
But I mean, you got to make a living somehow. So you can do it doing something you hate, or you can do it doing something you love. You're going to be away from them regardless, unless you're involving your kids and how you make money, which doesn't seem like a good idea. So there's that, there's the time. And then with this, there's probably the health thing too. Now, when we're on the road, I like to go run. Look, I could be a saint out there and say I never do anything bad for my body. I only work out and do the show and do breathing work and take ice baths and do saunas. We do all those good things, but they're also mixed in with midnight taquitos at the Shell gas station and pre-show beers and maybe a post-show trailer load beer, maybe a cigar. I mean, it's all stuff. You're always having fun or trying to create fun wherever you go, because if you show up and you're Debbie Downer in the corner, even if you're playing a bunch of slow songs, you have to be able to communicate emotion when you're performing for a group. And it's hard to do that when you're in the dumps. So whatever it takes to kind of keep your I don't know what to call it, but you got to keep your mojo high.
Yeah.
You got to be excited about what you're doing. Some days that's doing a 2-hour workout, and some days that's going to a cigar lounge, you know, whatever it is. And so, that's not always the best. And then there's the stress of like, is this ever going to work? I'm 18 years into this. So, there have been a lot of years where it was like, wow, I'm a complete failure. Did I drink my own Kool-Aid?
Yeah.
For too long. And now I'm in this pickle where this is the only skill I have. And, besides like manual labor jobs. But if you just keep trudging on, man, it'll work out.
Hey guys, Jacob here. Real quick before we get back to the episode, I just want to take a quick second to say, if you guys are enjoying this episode, please make sure to share the link with a friend. You may have noticed I don't run any ads in the podcast. In fact, I don't make any money off the podcast. It's quite the contrary. Over the past 5 years, I've invested a lot of time, money, and effort into the growth of the show, trying to continually upgrade the equipment, bring on better guests, and just improve the overall quality of the podcast. So if you guys are enjoying this episode, or if you enjoyed previous episodes, please share the link with a friend. Saying it to 1 or 2 people makes a huge difference for me on the back end. As always, I appreciate your guys' support. Let's get back into the episode. How long in your experience do those tough times last where you're like, man, I'm a failure? Like, is that a day? Has that been a month? Has that been a year? Like, how long?
Yeah. I mean, I bet it's been a year before. Like, I remember before my breakthrough album was Comeback Road, song that had Ain't Always Pretty, Better Off Gone, Somebody to Thank. Before that came out, I just lost a record deal. The first big record deal I had. We were in the middle of building a house in Tennessee, and we were living with my in-laws back in Kansas, here in Kansas now. And I didn't have any bookings that summer, like no shows, nobody was booking me. And it felt like everything had dried up. I had a van that broke down all the time. Couldn't keep band guys around. I was like, what have I gotten myself into? I had 2 little kids. They had no idea what was going on. And then, things kind of took off after that. And then there's been slumps since, and there will be slumps from here until whenever I'm, dead probably, because this is something I want to do until I can't do it anymore. So, I mean, it's just going to be ups and downs, peaks and valleys, baby.
Peaks and valleys. It always averages out.
Yep.
Do you think that the low times are like necessary? Like for you do you think it's a coincidence that you hit such a low before you hit that first peak? Or do you think that sometimes that's just how life is and there's no correlation with it?
I don't know, man. I only know my experience. I know people that, shot up like this, and never really, but they'll experience it too. It just might be in a different phase of their life. I think getting to experience a lot of adversity early on, and it could be self-inflicted adversity, because I didn't really want to just blend in and do what I was told to do. I was like, I kind of want to do things how I want to do them. And my ideas weren't always the best. So, I can't speak for anybody else, but I kind of got lost in your question, but
you're good, man. I'm just kind of asking, like, well, I guess even to that point, like the struggles build that character for you, regardless if they're self-inflicted. Like, I think it is such an advantage to struggle early on before a lot of people know your name, before your responsibilities have 10x to what they would eventually become, and to be able to be fortunate enough to work some of those kinks out.
Yeah, I think the best answer to that question really is like what I was getting at. I never wanted to be in a place I didn't deserve to be. So I guess for some reason I felt like I needed to have some hardship and struggle and to get a few notches in my belt before like anybody was patting me on the back, because there's nothing worse than somebody patting you on the back and you know you didn't really deserve to be there. And I feel like that's happened a few times. Early, I got a record deal, early on, and had a song that was working out, and I just didn't feel like, I don't know, I don't think I've earned this yet.
Yeah.
So maybe it was completely self-inflicted, but I don't want to be anywhere getting a pat on the shoulder when I shouldn't be there.
When you are having those tough times, like that period where you said it lasted as long as a year, I mean, what time frame do you try and then think into? Like, are you thinking about this week? Or are you thinking about just today? Like, how conceptually did you keep yourself moving forward? Because it is so easy for people to pack it in as soon as things get hard.
Yeah, well, I've just always had faith in the vision I started with, and I don't know what it was. I just creatively, I know that I'm on sometimes, and creatively, I know I'm off sometimes. Sometimes I'm in like business. Let's move the ship down the road, or down the water, whatever. I just called it a ship and then said a road, but let's get this thing moving, and it's all about networking and good communication. But there's other times, like when I have to go into a creative hole, that's a lot of solitude. And not a lot gets done in that time business wise, but like that's where everything comes from, is the songs, and because that's what drives the entire thing for me. So I almost have to pick and choose when to push which gas pedal. And finding the balance. And a lot of people probably that do what I'm doing, they might not have that. I kind of have an ADHD thing where I can only focus on one thing at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in business mode or creative mode. I don't know.
Do you create that environment for creative mode? Because I feel like with the restaurant and how busy things been between the podcast training for the ultra marathon and the restaurant, as my time constrained, I expected myself to be in a different state mentally, but I feel like this kind of solitude almost, I've been so much more clear mentally with like thoughts, and I've been so much more creative and concise with my wording and all of those types of things. Like, do you create that environment yourself to get you to that creative place?
Yeah, sometimes you have to, you have to build it into your day intentionally, even if it's just like, I'm going to go run for an hour out on the dirt roads and just kind of clear my mind, and then be away from people, not take my phone with me. And then you have time to pray or think, meditate, whatever you want to call it. It's just that solitude. And then you can kind of like get to the bottom of what it is you need to do. I need to make this phone call when I get back, or I need to go spend 3 hours alone at the studio when I get back. I feel like that's huge for me. Is that alone time to kind of like figure out where I'm being drawn to next.
That's a hard thing to do. I mean, we all have so many different phone calls, texts, emails, DMs, just constant interaction going on online and just from the outside world. Like shutting that off it's difficult to do.
It is. And, it's hard not to, when you already feel like you're buttoned up schedule wise and you can't fit anything else in it, and there's other people vying for your time. I get overwhelmed by that. And the best thing to do, seriously, is just take 30 minutes of complete solitude for me and just not think about anything, know, whether it's exercise or breathing or whatever. And it usually all falls into place.
Yeah. I feel like you did a good job for that, because when I got back from Florida in like April, I kind of was messaging you. I was like, hey, would love to do a podcast whenever you're free. And we kind of looked at setting it up. And then eventually you were like, when tour wraps up, I'll have more time. Let's do it. And I think that's the right move from just basically how you're structured, of like, you need to be able to tell people no so that you can focus on that task at hand and be in that creative space.
Yeah. Touring's hard, because you're traveling so much. And then you get back and you have a full day's worth of stuff to do to get wrapped up from the current run. And then before you leave again, you got a full day of stuff to do to get ready to leave for the next one. So you really only have 2 days during the week. And then you got your family and kids' activities and catching up with them. So, it's hard to figure out that balance sometimes. And you just have to learn to be like, look, we'll get to it, but I can't right now.
Yeah.
So
can't prioritize right.
Thanks for being patient with me.
Dude, I got no problem with it. How was tour?
It was great, man. We had, there was low points and high points. And we finished it off with a bang, right here in the hometown, Wichita. I use quotes because I'm not from Wichita, but close by. I was born in Wichita.
We've adopted you.
Yeah. And it was really cool to do that new stadium and have a good crowd out, and the band played great. It was a good way to end it. There was some doldrums in the middle where we had some dates that we were kind of like, okay, let's not do this again. But most of them were amazing. Yeah. I would say 99% of them were awesome.
Well, so you posted some of the stats. It was, what was it, like 36 stops, 19,000 miles? What was some of the numbers behind tour?
You'd have to ask our tour manager, Cam, about that. I don't know. He showed me those numbers and I'm like, that means nothing to me.
You're like, sounds good. I think I was there.
Yeah, I was there, dude. That's all that matters.
Yeah. Just checking that off.
Yeah.
So you just released an album as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it wasn't like the traditional album release in the sense that like here's a fresh batch of songs. And the reason for that is working the algorithm on, it's like the hot word of the decade, right? Algorithm. Working the algorithm on Spotify and Apple and Pandora is all that. You're constantly feeding it and giving it new stuff. And so it's like this mentality of I'm going to put a new song out every 4 to 6 weeks and constantly have that churning. And then you get to the end of it. Hey, I've put out 12, 13 singles. Here's an album. Yeah. And it's all the same songs. That can be a letdown for your hardcore fans because they're like, we already know all this. You already put it out. So right now we're trying to compensate for that where we can like go back, put something completely fresh out, fresh group, and be like, okay, here's for the hardcore people that are actually going to listen to this. And then we'll probably at some point go back to the singles and it's just bouncing back and forth. But yes, this album came out in July 28th, I believe. July 9th, I can't remember. Late July. And I really like it. It's one of my favorites.
How does this album compare to other ones you've released?
It was made over such a long period of time. My last record came out in 2021, Welcome to Prairieville. And
3 years.
Yeah, so 3 years of in and out of Nashville. And I did a project here in Kansas too at this studio, an acoustic one. But yeah, it was just like when I can get time, go in, cut with my producer, and then leave the next day and maybe come back in a month. So it didn't feel like a cohesive record, but then when I listened back to it everything fits together really, really well.
So I'm going to draw a basketball analogy here. Like I'm a big Michael Jordan fan, love the Chicago Bulls. And, you know, whenever you're a young athlete in the NBA, you're more explosive, you make more kind of mistakes that mature players wouldn't make, but you have the energy to compensate for that. Then as your game develops and your body kind of starts to wear and tear and you're less explosive, you have to focus more on your actual craft, the fundamentals, your skills, and be able to find different ways to get the same results or better results. Do you feel like there's any similarity to that with your career whenever you first started releasing albums and gaining that momentum to how you are now releasing albums and performing?
Yeah, for sure. When you're young and you're writing songs, you're just excited when you finish a song, whether it's good or bad. And so you finish a song and you're like, heck yeah, and you're fired up about it. It doesn't matter. If you finish, to this day, if I finish a bad song, I'm still excited because I created something.
Yeah.
And so, but I'm aware within an hour, 30 minutes to an hour, if it's good or bad. Back when I was 22, well, I wrote most of that, my very first album when I was between the ages of 20 and 23. I was just excited to have songs. And so, and I didn't know how to sing in the studio and I didn't care what anybody thought. Like the just the confidence that I had that I was doing something awesome was through the roof. And nowadays it's like, that doesn't pass, you know, and there could be 30 or 40 songs sitting there and I'm like, I don't know if we got one yet, you know? So it takes longer. But that explosive thing that you're talking about is just that young, fresh, excited to be doing what you're doing energy. You got to figure out how to turn that into like, okay, now start chipping away at the block. Yeah. You know, you got to turn this into a masterpiece. You can't just keep flopping, you know, stuff you're excited about out.
Do you think about your work like in that conceptually of a way of like, this needs to be better than the last?
No, not necessarily better because that's subjective, but definitely I feel like you got to show different sides of yourself. Like I've had the tendency a lot to do very geographically based music where it's like heartland, prairie, Midwest, sunset. And that's me, right? I love that stuff. I grew up here and that's what I have to draw from. But, you know, you gotta reach everybody, you know? So, you gotta try to, and that's where outside songs come in. You find other songwriters to work with, to kind of broaden your perspective. So, yeah, I try to mix it up, but I don't know if it's all about making something better, just maybe exploring a different direction with your creativity.
Yeah, that makes sense. So like if you were looking at this as a career, like what stage of your career are you in? Like if you had to title this chapter of your life, what would it be?
That's a good question, man. I would title it Figuring It Out. Figured it out. Maybe almost figured it out.
Almost?
Almost.
You think you're there? Almost?
I'm close. Yeah. I mean, I know myself way better than I did in my 20s and early 30s. I know what I'm drawn to. I know what I will and won't do. I'm not afraid to say no. And I'm not afraid of all the rush of emotions you get, whether it's the fear of, you know, something new or going on stage in front of a new audience, or the fear of the unknown of like failure or extreme success. Everything is just like, take it as it comes. I don't care what happens. I'm just happy that I created something that I feel passionate about and I can't wait to share it with people. And, I can't say that for my past. It's always been this just like hodgepodge of anxiety and, you know.
How do you deal with that? How did you deal with that?
A lot. I love to exercise, you know. I ran a lot more when I was younger. These days I mix it up and do other stuff. A lot of like HIIT training and stuff. But that's the number one thing, is just like always feeling like, okay, I know there's this one thing I can do that like nobody else is part of.
Yeah.
And I can go do that. Thank God for this body that lets me go move.
Right.
You know?
Right. Seriously.
I would say that's 85% of the battle. You know, it's just moving and staying active. The rest of it's psychological and then trusting your instincts and not letting yourself get talked into anything or feeding on negative energy. Just kind of going with the flow, taking it as it comes and not judging any of those things.
Yeah. I mean, that's a hard thing to do. I feel like a lot of the listeners are my age or a little bit younger. I'm 23. And it's kind of this period of your life where you're just on that beginning of like, I want to figure it out. Like you're saying, you're close to having it figured out. And it's like, I think a lot of my listeners, myself included, have all of this energy. And it's like, I want to go do something. I want it to be impactful. And, you know, I want my life to matter and all these types of things. And they may not have found that avenue or that path to put that energy into. And that just creates a lot of anxiety and stress. And I think that can be a really difficult thing to deal with when you're younger.
Oh, yeah. But dude, I'm trying to think of myself at 23. That's when my first album came out. You are light years more mature than I was at 23. You know, I mean, I could have held a conversation, but like I couldn't have showed up with, you know, the podcast gear and, you know, remembered to return a text to you. There's no way I couldn't have done it. And you're very well spoken and you have kind of an old soul about you. So, yeah, I think you're crushing it for 23.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah, honestly, I'm really bad at taking a compliment. I don't know what to say.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I hate compliments too, but I had to give you one. You're killing it.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. There's a chapter in a book. Are you familiar with Tom Devlin? Do you know who he is?
I know that name.
Okay. So he founded Rent-A-Center. He's one of the great Wichita entrepreneurs. So he started Rent-A-Center, which was a rent-to-own, like one of the first rent-to-own concepts ever. Like if you needed a television, they would rent it to you on credit. And so that was like brand new when he started that. He's Wichita State grad. And then it became a publicly traded company, became massively successful. But I read his book a while back, and he's got this chapter called Young Man in a Hurry. And I feel like if I were to title this section of my life, it's Young Men in a Hurry.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really refreshing to see kind of your calmness and to feel that as we're having this conversation, because like there's just so much energy right now, and that's a good thing. But like to see potentially what's down the road of like making sense of everything and finding that piece. It's a really cool thing to see.
Yeah, and I don't want to call it slowing down at all because that's depressing. Like when someone says like, "Oh, I'm slowing down," it's like, you are? Come on, dude. You only live once. Get on your horse. It's not a slowing down at all. It's more of like a directed focus that's not bouncing off the walls. Because that was me, man. My wife is always sending me like, you need to self-diagnose yourself. You have terrible ADHD. You know, it's just like I'm in a room just bouncing. I've figured out how to control it quite a bit. And yeah, you just kind of chill out and go, okay, just focus on what's in front of you. Don't worry about anything. And worry is the biggest thing, man.
Yeah.
You start worrying about stuff that doesn't exist. You're worrying about hypothetical futures. It's like, get rid of that, man. Mm-hmm. Just focus on now. I'm doing good. All right, cool. Let's go.
How important is it to find the right partner?
Oh man, getting the wrong partner can ruin your life, dude.
Yeah, right.
It could ruin your life. And luckily I met Jill when I was really young. I mean, right college age, you know. And she was very good at like making me check myself. Not like I was never like into anything devious. It was just like probably too much self-confidence.
Yeah.
Not directed confidence either. You know, like I said, just all over the place and going like, get it together, you know? And she's been very helpful, and she's a little bit risk averse where I'm like, I'm ready to go all in on everything all the time, you know? And so that's really good. She kind of helps me like not make stupid decisions. Sometimes she doesn't say anything and watches me just kind of dance around in the ashes of a bad decision, you know, and say, I told you so. But yeah, I think having a good partner is God, it's a huge, huge thing.
Yeah, I love that because she's like your compliment. At least is what it seems like.
Absolutely,
from the way you talk about her. And again, like people that are my age, I think that's something really important is like finding that person. And I mean, did you just run into her? How did you come across her?
I don't know how in depth you want me to get with this. Yeah, well, I'll tell you the non-spiritual version of it, which I'm not afraid to go there, but
well, why don't you go there?
I would call her there was a girl I was kind of talking to. I dropped out of college and I was going to school at Southern Illinois in Carbondale, and I moved back to Wichita, to Clearwater, but Wichita area.
Yeah.
And, there's, for any Wichita folks listening, there's a subdivision on 135th and 13th. That was a field when this was 2005. And I was 19 years old, and I was I framed the first like 6 or 7 houses in there. I was just on a crew making $8 an hour. And I met this girl, went on a couple of dates with her. It wasn't anything serious. She was a waitress at Pizza Hut where I ate lunch in Goddard.
Nice.
And eventually got to know her through her, got a number passed to me, and said, this girl's moving to Nashville. At the time I was talking about moving to Nashville. This girl's a singer. She's thinking about moving to Nashville. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Threw the number away. Didn't think anything of it. And then same thing happened to her with me. Someone had told her about me. And it turns out that her friend that she was going to ultrasound school at Newman with was one of the houses I framed in that subdivision.
Really?
Yeah. And so anyway, it was kind of this thing where our number kept getting passed back and forth to each. I don't even know. Yeah. Her people were giving my number to her and vice versa. It happened multiple times. Neither of us thought anything of it. I moved to Nashville in 2006, was there 3 years, and her name came up again. I've saw a picture of her on Facebook, and it was like her with her cousin, and they were cutting wheat here in Andale. And I just was like, oh, I didn't know who she was, but in my like mind, I was like, I've known that person forever. And I remember telling my mom, I was like, that's the girl I'm going to marry.
Really?
Yeah. And, lo and behold, it was the number that had been passed to me like multiple times when I was framing houses in Wichita. And she moved out to Nashville. And didn't really know how to approach her at the time. I wasn't interested in a relationship. I had a band and I was on the road and whatever.
Big shot
by the road. I mean, I had a Suburban and I was making like $150 to open for Pat Green. Anyway, I found out she got in a car wreck one of her like first weeks or months in Nashville. And like, it was that weird thing where I felt like I was responsible to like check on her and I don't know why. I was like, oh my God, I got to see if she's okay.
Yeah.
Why do I feel like this? I haven't felt like that about anybody before. You know, it was like, and so I had this urgent feeling to call her and check on her and make sure she's okay. She was. And, she asked me if I wanted to write a song sometime. We got together, wrote a song, asked her if she wanted to ride on my lawnmower with me. And she said no, she declined. And a month later, we were dating, and St. Patrick's Day 2009, baby. And yeah, that's the short version. But we were in pictures together in high school that we didn't know about. And we found them. She's got them in her scrapbook. There's a picture of her on the dance team on the track, and I'm on the field. I'm taking a drink of water out of a water bottle at like a timeout break, and she's right behind me on the track in the dance team. We didn't know each other. So, and there's several of those, but it's just a weird thing.
You did not ask her if she wants to ride on your lawnmower.
I did. I had a Briggs & Stratton hydrostatic, and we lived at this place in Whites Creek, and I had a little band party. My band was out there playing.
Yeah.
And she came out. It was actually her birthday. It was February 8th, 2009. And I said, do you want to go for a ride with me on the lawnmower? And she said no. And we were dating by St. Patrick's Day, baby.
That opening line is one I'll have to keep in the back of my mind.
Yeah, really smooth.
Yeah,
really smooth
that is
stuff.
smooth.
Yeah.
So this has come up a couple of times, just kind of this gut feeling where you're like either believing in yourself or with your now wife, like why do you trust your intuition instead of question it and just don't listen at all?
I think your intuition is right. And I think that you're trained throughout life to like not trust your intuition and to trust like institutions. You know, it's funny how those words almost like intertwine together.
Yeah. Just
like rearrange the letters, and intuition is the one that you should follow. I've never bought into like, if somebody says something and my gut just doesn't settle right with it.
Yeah.
I immediately go, no, and I'm going to follow my intuition on this, even if it's to my own detriment. Or like, you know, I blew some big chances early on in the music business where my gut was like, that's not the right thing, you know, and I didn't do it. And it could have been a hugely successful thing, but I might not have kids or be married right now.
Yeah.
You know, and I might not have this perspective. I don't know.
What do you think intuition is?
My honest answer?
Yeah.
I think it's your eternal spirit, or your spirit guide or guardian angel, however you want to put it. But I've just learned to trust that feeling.
Yeah. Jordan Peterson's got a cool quote where he says, truth is the adventure of your life.
Yeah.
It's like you can choose not to listen to what you feel is the truth on the inside. And many times you don't listen to it, and there's a repercussion that occurs later in your life, and you're like, well, where's that come from? That's not fair or whatever. But then if you trace it back, it's like, when were you not listening to that feeling you had inside? It's the weirdest thing, but it does seem to pull you in a direction if you're willing to listen to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you've been in those situations before where, like, you know, like as a kid, you get caught doing something. I remember I stole a piece of gum from my family. Owned a grocery. They still own it. They own a grocery store in Clearwater, Mize Thriftway. And when I was a little kid, they had this thing that had like, I don't know, nickel gum, bubble gum. And I remember when the grocery store line, I really wanted that gum. And I got it and I put it in my pocket. And like, it was that feeling where like my whole body went, not like I was sweating at 6 years old, but like that nervous, like heat on my face feeling before I ever got in trouble was, I know I'm not supposed to take something without telling anybody, or at least paying for it, or like making some sort of amends with, I'm taking this item. It's not mine.
Right.
Man, it's the same thing in your life. You always know when you're making the right moves, and your gut will tell you.
Yeah. Whenever like you said that it could have been big, and not following your gut could have had huge, positive repercussions for your career. Have you ever had regret around that? Or is it like if your intuition tells you something, you don't question it and you just go?
There may be moments that are, I wouldn't consider, like maybe moments in vain where like you go, oh, if I just would have done that one thing, my status could be here instead of here, but that doesn't matter in real life, right?
Yeah.
Depends on which, you get what I'm saying. No, I think you always have to go with your gut, and it leads you to the right place.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm going to pull up a receipt here. You said something in a podcast, in our podcast actually a while back that I liked and I wanted to ask you about. So you said happiness comes from personal responsibility. What did you mean by that?
I think I probably stole that from Jordan Peterson.
Back again.
But I found it to be true. Like if you can speak your truth and you can say things as they are, your version of black and white, which everybody has ways of twisting stories or remembering things wrong. But I always try to do the best I can. I'm a good storyteller. And I like to think of myself as a decent storyteller, I should say.
Right.
As a kid, I would make up crazy stories just to trick my family into like believing something crazy, right? So they always thought I was full of crap. But really, I just like the adventure of like making up a story and getting somebody to be invested in it. Figured out later, like, oh, you should just write songs, But like being truthful and being honest when nobody's looking, and being able to carry that around, whether anybody else knows it or not, is rewarding. And then just being able to, the responsibility of like being there for your kids and being able to go like, I know that at least my intentions and my effort to act on those intentions were in the right place.
Yeah.
I think that is the source of happiness, right? Because if you're carrying around a web of mistruths or wrong deeds on your heart, man, I couldn't live like that.
It's exhausting.
Sounds exhausting. It sounds miserable, and it sounds like, an early grave, man.
And I think it's a big thing if you can lay your head down at night and think to yourself, looking back on today, I at least tried to make the right decision at every opportunity that I had. Like, you're not always going to get it right, but to know that you didn't intentionally do something wrong, I think that's huge.
Absolutely, dude. And just showing kindness and compassion to people and being empathetic, which sometimes, if you're caught up in your own, I opened a restaurant, I got a podcast, I got all this stuff that you're doing, you can get caught up in your own life, but it's good to remember there's other people too.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to, I'm saying it for me.
Yeah.
Cause I'm like, oh, I got to tour, I got to write songs, I got to make a record. And, sometimes it's like, oh, this isn't all about me, man.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to put, dollars in the bank and fulfill my own dream, but there's other people involved. And yeah, sometimes you got to step back and realize that.
I really like that perspective. And that's definitely good for me to keep in mind as I'm so busy and have so many things going on. There's a bigger picture.
I shouldn't have started with what you're doing. I should have started with what I'm doing. You seem to be pretty good at it.
No, man, it's all facade.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said earlier, you've mentioned this a couple times actually, that you like to run. And I'm honestly very surprised by that. I didn't peg you as a runner.
I know I'm a big guy. My dad was a runner. He ran a lot of races. And when I was a kid, when he would run, I grew up in Peck, Kansas, and then in Clearwater, Kansas. But he would always go run on dirt roads and or in Clearwater around the town, and I would follow him on a Huffy bicycle.
Yeah.
And I just remember that was like a part of his everyday routine. So naturally, like when I got done with college sports, and I wanted that, I really missed the physical activity of having to go to weights and cardio every day. When I quit, I was like, something's missing. And so I started running, and it just felt natural. And so yeah, 3 to 5 miles a day was what I started with. And then I worked my way up to like where I would go out and do 9 and 10 miles. And my dream was always to do like a marathon or like an off-road, like one of the big ones like you're doing. I don't know about 100, maybe 50. 100's never been one of my goals.
You got to have something slightly wrong with you in the dedication.
So, man, I think you got to check yourself. No, I think it's awesome. And I've always wanted to do one of those. There's a 40 miler here in Pretty Prairie in March that I would love to do. If I can get my leg healthy, almost burnt the damn thing off. But, I love running. It's great.
So you said if you can get the leg healthy, was that actually on your agenda to go out and do that 40 miler in the spring?
I've been talking about it for years. Yeah. I've been saying I'm going to do I think it's called the Alpha Dog 40. Is that what you probably know?
There's like a prairie dog 40 or something. I don't know. But anyways, there's still one in the spring. There's
one in March in Pretty Prairie, and it's the Alpha Dog 40, I believe.
Okay.
But I've been wanting to do that.
What needs to get better about your leg? For those that don't know, you burnt your leg horrifically and then proceed to share it all on Instagram.
Yeah, I did. It was just one of those moments where I was like, I should probably just keep this private, but I had fun with it instead.
Yeah.
I got 3rd-degree burns on it, and I'm all bandaged up here now, but I can like walk and jog comfortably. I haven't tested jogging for more than like 100 yards yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm hoping to be running by November.
Okay. Are you in like PT, or is it just like as it heals and how it feels?
How it heals and how it feels. And stretching is important because it's an open wound, and as it dries, that skin kind of contracts.
That's fair, yeah.
But I didn't burn all the way into the muscle. I burnt through all the skin into the fat. And so there was a little bit of a layer. I didn't damage any muscle tissue, so I should be good.
How brutal did that feel when it happened?
Not bad. Not bad. I laid the bike over, and I'm sure adrenaline was going when that heat hit my leg, and it was kind of pinned under there for maybe 4 or 5 seconds. Pulled it off. It pulled the skin off with it. I didn't realize how bad it was because it was just, there was no blood initially. It was just kind of like a white color.
Yeah.
And so I didn't think it was that bad. And your adrenaline's going. Also realized later, with a burn that deep, it fries the nerve endings off. So you're not feeling much.
Right.
But 2 or 3 days later, I couldn't even walk. Like this is the worst pain I've ever had in my life. Like if my foot was like elevated, like laying flat on my bed, trying to get my leg to my foot to go down to the floor, felt like my leg was going to explode.
Oh my gosh, man.
Unbelievable pain, like full blown sweating, like sweating through a shirt, pain just to get my leg to the floor. It was insane. And then, it got infected because I wasn't taking care of it because I didn't realize it was 3rd-degree burn.
Right.
And luckily I didn't get septic, but I was heading in that direction. So I spent 5 days in the hospital.
So like, did you burn it terribly? It didn't hurt because you burnt the nerve endings. You put a little bit of peroxide or something on it and then just called it good and wrapped it up? Or like, what did you do to treat this before you went to the hospital?
This is embarrassing. I burnt it, and then we were at a friend's house, and my son and his friend were riding dirt bikes around. I did it on my friend's son's dirt bike.
Yeah.
And then we left it. We were watching the Chiefs game, and I went home and got on the tractor and went and cut some grass out in the pasture behind our house. And, dust and grass particles flying. Didn't have it covered or anything. And then went and took a shower in the well water shower. And then, just put some cold water on it, And then I kind of didn't really know what to do. I put the Silvadine, just like a natural home remedy like thing I smeared on there.
Yeah.
Didn't cover it, went to bed, and then went throughout the next 2 days. And then I started running really severe temperatures, like fevers and shaking. And I'd go from like sweating to freezing cold, and like shaking uncontrollably back to sweating. And when Jill finally took me to the hospital, I was like full blown, like she thought I was septic because I couldn't even talk.
Yeah.
All I could do was breathe, and my body was all shaking. It was kind of scary.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you think your life was on the line?
I started thinking that. It was like the 3rd day. I was like, I'm in real trouble here. It was like something went off, that gut thing.
Yeah.
You're like, you got to get this taken care of now.
Yeah.
And St. Francis like immediately was like, you're going into surgery, and then gave me an IV, started pumping me full of antibiotics. So,
and then they did like a skin graft,
and did a skin graft. Yep.
What did you have any sort of profound realizations whenever you're like, man, I really screwed up. This could have like a serious impact on my life.
Yeah. At first I didn't, because Jill and some of the other moms were like, I say moms, like our kids' friends' moms were like, this is serious. You know, you should take this. You should do this. You could lose a leg. And I'm like, who hasn't been burnt by a,
yeah, right.
You know, I've had muffler burns before. This is no big deal. Like, you guys need to calm down.
Yeah.
You know, you're making a big deal out of this. Sure enough, they were right. And it was like the moment when I was like convulsing and shaking uncontrollably, and they had to put me in a wheelchair to wheel me into the hospital. I was like, okay, this is seriously bad. I've made a mistake. I've made a slight oversight here.
Yeah, you know? Just a little one.
But yeah, I'm here. And thanks to the burn unit at St. Francis, if anybody there hears this, you guys were awesome, had great nurses, and they've been nothing but great to me.
Huge shout out.
Yeah.
As a thought exercise, right? You got that terrible burn. You tossed out a 40 miler in the spring. If you were to right now, just as a thought exercise, think, what training do I need to do? Like, what steps do I need to take to get to that 40 miler in the spring? What would that look like in your head?
So I just got a Spartan Warrior cold plunge, which I'm really excited about.
Oh, let's go.
I'm a big cold shower guy.
Yeah.
Always take cold showers, and I'll do the ice plunges. But I'm all about the anti-inflammatory wherever I can get it. So I just got that installed, and I'm thinking because I still can't even take a shower with this because we're on well water, so I can't even get bacteria in it. But the first clearance I have to like submerge it in water, start there, and then I got to work back up to like a good 5 mile pace right now, and then obviously from there it's going to be slow training, like going out and slowing down and run 10.5-minute miles, and because I've never run more than 12, 13 miles at a time. So, and that was probably at like between 8 and 9 minute pace when I was probably 30 pounds lighter. So I got to shed some weight and just focus on getting in the zone, moving slow, and then work myself up back to like the hitting 10 miles.
Yeah.
You know, and then we'll see where we're at there.
Yeah.
I'd love to be hitting the 15-mile mark by January, you know, and then we're closing in on 2 months to hit 40. Yep. I mean, I don't know. I hate to sign up for it before I know how this is going to heal, but I almost just want to do it for the challenge.
Just to force yourself into it?
Just to force myself into it.
I think you'd be surprised how far you can go when it's actually race day, because you do get that adrenaline. Mm-hmm. And it's not just like whenever you get injured, you get a quick shot of adrenaline. It's like, it's a longer shot of it.
Yeah.
And it's not the whole time. Like, there's going to be low periods, but your body right now, I mean, without the scar and the healing, if you were not injured, you could probably do 40 miles today.
I don't think so, buddy.
Oh, I'm confident you could.
I don't know. Well, if I took walking breaks, maybe.
Yeah. Do you not want to take walking breaks?
I don't know, because I've never ran a 40 miler.
Very common.
Okay.
Very common. I utilize a lot of walking.
Okay.
It extends your range greatly.
Okay.
So time on feet's a big metric. So like, as you're starting to train for this, if you don't want to go run one day, just start walking, and chances are by the end you'll be running you'll be out there.
Right. Yeah, I've kind of learned that over time. Like when I was younger, it was like if I wasn't running a 7:15 pace, then I might as well not even be out here.
Yeah, right.
And as I've gotten older, it's like 10 steps is better than 0 steps, you know? And then 10 steps translates into 100, and 100 translates into 10,000. But yeah, that young, like we talked about earlier, that younger mentality of like full speed ahead all the time.
Go get it, man.
Which 7:15 isn't super fast for anybody who's a serious runner, but for me, I know I've never been below 220 pounds since I was 17 years old. So.
Oh, good God.
so I mean, 7:15 is decent for me.
7:15 is very fast, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's not very, but it's okay.
No, it's very. I had the world record holder on last week. I was telling you about this. He did 6:48 for 100. So, I mean, 7:15 for any period.
I'm talking like 7:15 for like 5 or 6 miles. I'm not that fast.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say. if you actually sign up for the 40 miler this spring, I will build a training plan and then I will also sign up. So if you need like an accountability partner, I'm willing to do that. Fingers crossed the restaurant doesn't light on fire, but I'm willing to do that.
It sounds like a lot of training, but all right.
All right. Okay. So as we start to wrap up, I've got just a couple questions for you. First one being, who would be your dream collab?
My dream collab.
Yeah.
This one's hard because you always go like, who's the hot thing right now that would be great to accelerate my career?
Yeah.
And you can't think that way. You got to literally go with dream collaboration. Like, who do I think would be the most fun? What would be the most exciting thing that would just give me like, that's all I needed.
Right.
Aside from Jill, who we've done projects together. And she's super fun to sing with, and write with, but
good job covering your bases there.
Yeah. You got to do that. I would boil it down to, just for like the hero thing, like, and I'm not talking politically or as a person, I don't know anything about him, but just musically, somebody like a John Mellencamp would be awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know if that'll ever happen, but it'd be badass. Or like Mary Chapin Carpenter. That'd be cool. Someone closer to my age. Oh gosh, there's some. Brent Cobb is really cool. I think he's one of the coolest artists out right now. He'd be fun to do a collab with. But I mean, there's so many great artists.
Yeah, there is
that I love out there. Gosh, I don't know. There's so many names coming to mind. That's a tough question.
Have you heard of Sam Barber?
I know that name.
Sam Barber's an up and coming kind of artist. And he does like Straight and Narrow and a few other songs, but I feel like he would be a really fun one. He's got so much soul. Like I think he's out in like Wyoming or something. He always makes his music videos. It's just him with his cheap mic and a cheap camera, but the mountains are behind him and he's just strumming his guitar.
That's
like,
cool.
There's so much down to earth, pure soul in that.
I love that. Yeah, and I love a lot of the Texas guys too. I mean, Randy Rogers, Wade Bowen, all those guys, Pat Green. I mean, I love that. I grew up listening to that stuff. Ragweed.
I feel like Kid Rock would be a hoot too.
Dude, that'd be fun.
So fun.
That'd be so fun. Yeah, that would be a hoot.
Have you seen pictures of his house?
Is it like the White House?
Yeah,
miniature version.
It's like a
full-size version.
Yeah, and he's got like his bathroom is fully gold inspect. Like he talked about on the Joe Rogan podcast, he got a custom gold toilet, and he's like, no one wants to make like a gold toilet seat. I get everything else, but like I had to go to this person. It's just the craziest house.
That's when you got like, what do you do? Yeah, whatever. I'm not going to judge anybody, but I can think of better things to do besides a cold toilet.
I don't know, man. He's living a pretty fun life, it seems like.
He is for sure. Yeah. Kudos to him.
Yeah. Shout out to him. Okay. As we wrap up here, man, where can people find you online if they want to reach out, connect, learn more?
Everything's at loganmize.com. That's LOGANMIZE.com. And links to Instagram. I'm usually Instagram heavy, or Facebook. I'm not a good TikToker. I'll throw stuff up there once in a while. Twitter, I don't really do much with, X. Yeah. And then my website has everything you need, and we do all our booking through our website and all that. So yeah. And then you could subscribe to my email list through my website, which I've been trying to do a better job of getting like personal connection with the hardcore fans that have been there forever. So yeah, I communicate with you through all those.
You started an email list?
I've had one forever, and I kind of fell off the wagon with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've kind of started rebooting it and trying to communicate with those fans that are like the ones that you want to super serve, that have bought tickets to multiple shows.
Yeah.
Know every record. You kind of realize like, hey, those are the ones that have sustained me through the dark times. They were there when nobody else was.
Yeah.
And so I want to figure out a way to communicate more with them than just in general trying to reach 100,000 people on a reel,
Yeah. That's cool. My aunt's definitely one of your super fans.
Oh, that's cool. Tell her thank you.
I gave her that signed record that you gave me the first episode we did, and she was over the moon. And then she went to see you, and you performed like Kankakee or Bourbonnais or something, somewhere in that general southern
Kankakee,
Chicago area. Yeah, she came out and watched you there. And
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, she loves the episodes we do together.
That's so cool.
Yeah, but you can find me on Instagram at Jacob O'Connor. The podcast is at Real Period Conversations. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to share it with a friend. Logan, my last question for you. Looking back at this really wild journey you've been on, what advice would you offer to your 23-year-old self?
My 23-year-old self. I would just say, like, you're not going to find fulfillment looking at the outside world, trying to get somebody to give you affirmation or, everything comes from within, right? And you really have to fulfill that creative spirit in you and do what makes you happy, and in a sense of how you can serve yourself and others at the same time, right? And I feel like I'm still trying to find that balance, but like, I love creating music and I love going and playing it at shows, and people are smiling and they're happy to be there. It's like, God, it's so fun to do something that other people are enjoying as much as I am. And that's the most fulfilling part about it, whether it's a room of 30 people or a stadium of 3,000. I mean, that's the best part. And so just stick to your guns, follow your gut, and fulfillment is within.
Dude, that's wise.
I don't know about why. I'm not there yet.
Yeah. I love it, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, dude. Thanks again for having me.
Of course.